That's not too bad, right?
We're good.
Okay. This is set up for right-handers,
Oh,
but.
sorry.
All right, good morning. The Oversight Committee on State and Local Public Assistance Programs will come to order. Will clerk please take today's attendance?
Chair Wolford, Representatives Bruck,
Present.
Kara,
Here.
Cerniglu,
Here.
Menser.
Here.
Mr. Chair, you have 4 members present. You do have a quorum.
All righty, Representative Kara moves to adopt the minutes for the April 24th meeting. If there be no objections, motion will prevail. Today, as you can see, Chair Wolford is not here. He's testifying in another committee this morning at the same time, so I am chairing today's committee. Today we will have several presentations from the Michigan Department of Labor, Economic Opportunity, the UIA, and the Office of Global Michigan. So I'm not sure who is going first. Whoever wants to volunteer first may just do an introduction of yourself. Oh, before you introduce, please have a seat though. I guess Representative Menser has something.
So if you recall, the last time that we met with DHHS and we were talking about food and snack programs. And Representative Kara and I were talking about soda and not having it included in snack benefits. And I said it was medicinal. And he reminded me that medicinal drinks aren't covered by SNAP. But I have brought you all a Verner's because it is medicinal. According to my grandmother, we drank it when we had sore throats, we drank it when we had headaches, and we drank it when I skinned my knee. So as far as my family is concerned, this is a medicinal drink and should be covered everywhere.
My grandmother prefers 7-Up, but
Wow.
I have drank Verner's warm, I have drank it cold, I have drank it hot. And look, here I am to this day, still somewhat sane and healthy. So that's it from my grandmother.
Was there high fructose corn syrup in Verner's back in the day?
Well, we appreciate that, Representative Menser, and just for the record, Verner's is a Michigan original, so we appreciate that. Michigan soda. With that being said, we will start our testimony, and please do an introduction, make sure the red light is on, and the floor is yours, madam.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair and committee members. Thank you again for the opportunity to present today. My name is Jayshana Hicks, and I am the Director of Legislative Affairs for the Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity, also known as LEO. Joining me today is Senior Chief Deputy Director of LEO. And as requested, we're here to provide an overview of the department, including who we are and what we do, and also highlight some of our state public assistance programs. So I know we got like 3 presentations, so I'm gonna kick it right over to Jonathan, and we're happy to answer any questions towards the end. Thank you.
Thanks, good morning. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today and share with you a little bit about what we do with the Michigan Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity. Our department was created in 2019, and the idea was to put a number of different agencies and bureaus from around different departments together to get increased collaboration and cooperation around the goal of making Michigan a place where people, businesses, and communities have the means to reach their full potential. We're focused on expanding opportunity and prosperity in every corner of the state, from rural towns to urban centers and everywhere in between. Here you can see our org chart, which we'll get into, I think, a little bit more detail, but the idea here is that we've got a handful of what are called Type 1 agencies, as well as a number of bureaus and agencies that are organized under specific offices, and that together, through collaboration coordination, we're able to meet the wide variety of needs that Michigan's communities, businesses, and workers have to reach their potential and have greater prosperity around the state. On the next slide, you'll see a little bit about how the agencies within LEO work together to provide some of the seamless and coordinated service for the people and communities that we serve. That collaboration really helps our agencies share resources, reduce gaps, respond quickly to complex challenges, ultimately delivering better outcomes and a positive experience for the public. On the sort of light orange bubbles on that screen, you'll see those agencies that I discussed that are the Type 1 agencies. The Michigan State Housing Development Authority, MSHDA, provides financial and technical assistance through public and private partnerships to create and preserve safe and affordable housing. The Michigan Economic Development Corporation works with Michigan businesses and communities to deliver the services and support that they need to grow and succeed. Both of these agencies are cabinet level agencies whose leaders are appointed. They report to a board that is appointed by the governor. They're housed within LEO so that we can have a high degree of coordination and collaboration between economic development, workforce development, and community development functions. All three of those need to be coordinated in terms of strategy in order to have a prosperous, outcomes for the state. One of the ways that we ensure that collaboration is through Director Corbin's service as chair of the MSHDA board and also as a member of the Michigan Strategic Fund Board. The State Land Bank Authority is organized in a similar way. It's overseen by a board that Director Corbin chairs, and both the CEO of MEDC and MSHDA or their designee also sits on that board. The land bank's work is both serving as the state land bank, so acquisition and assembly and disposal of public property, including tax-reverted property. And then it also supports the work of state and local land banks in the areas where those exist. You'll see on here also the Unemployment Insurance Agency, which is a large office within LEO. You'll be hearing from my colleague Brett later today. But most of the other agencies and bureaus within LEO are organized in one of three offices, either the Office of Employment and Training, the Office of Labor, or the Office of Prosperity. So I'll discuss each of those in more detail in the next few slides. The Office of Employment and Training partners with the local MWAs, the workforce agencies, and their boards to support businesses looking to hire or train workers, and they also support individuals who are seeking employment or upskilling. They do this through a variety of functions, one of which is the Workforce Development Agency. So this is the agency that works closely with those individual MWAs in each region. They help promote a flexible, innovative, and effective workforce system within the state to ensure that we get the cooperation on the sort of federal, state, local partnership that is the federally funded WIOA workforce system. The Bureau of Services for Blind Persons provides specialized training and services for folks who are blind or visually impaired, helps them achieve both employment and independent living. So the services they provide are individualized, and they're focused on vocational skills to help find a job, training, but also skills for daily living so that they can live independently. Additional services include acquiring equipment that might be necessary, specialized software, or if there's a specialized post-secondary program that would benefit those individuals, so they can help provide that as well. Michigan Rehabilitation Services also provides vocational rehab services. This is for eligible individuals who have a disability, whether it's a mental or physical disability. It helps them engage in employment and achieve economic self-sufficiency. Again, similar services here in terms of assessments, vocational rehab, guidance, counseling, technology that might help assist them either in the workplace or in their ability to live independently. Also specialized job search assistance and benefits counseling. The Veterans Employment Services Agency provides individualized services and training related service to, not just to veterans, but also to their spouses. This is a population that oftentimes has significant barriers to employment, and so they get specialized career guidance. They have individualized employment plans, help with job search, information about labor markets, resume and interview prep, and building networking skills. And so helping these folks translate their military service into a civilian occupation is a part of the specialized services that are delivered here. In the Office of Labor, they ensure workplace safety and good labor relations for employees and employers. The specific parts of this office include the Workers' Compensation Agency, which administers the Workers' Disability Compensation Act. So this provides wage replacement, medical and vocational rehabilitation benefits to Michigan workers who suffer a work-related injury or disability. They also ensure compliance with the insurance provisions of the act that protect injured workers, and they help employers ensure that they're able to comply and ensure that they're not facing unfair competition from those companies that are not in compliance. The Bureau of Employment Relations is responsible for resolving labor disputes between public and private sector employees and their employers when requested. The Wage and Hour Division works to provide public service through the fair administration of the laws that protect wages and benefits for workers. This includes earned sick time, laws that provide for safe and legal employment of children and minors. It requires the laws that require specific postings that are required in the workplace. And then finally, the Michigan Occupational Safety and Health Administration, MIOSHA. This is obviously the agency that helps protect workers through promoting workplace safety. They do outreach and training. They help with enforcement, cooperative agreements, but also do a lot of employer education work to ensure that there's awareness of what's required so that we don't have employers who inadvertently are out of compliance. And then the Office of Prosperity. This is a collection of often smaller offices and some of the governor-appointed councils and bureau councils and boards. They provide Michiganders with opportunities to empower and strengthen our communities. So some of the offices include the Office of Rural Prosperity, which works with local communities to provide specialized support for those rural areas that have unique needs, can cross a whole host of areas, but help with grants and funding to help with housing and jobs and public improvements that rural communities need for growth and resiliency. The Michigan Poverty Task Force is really a policy advisory office that it's made up of the directors of various state departments or their designees, really tasked with making recommendations to the governor on policies that could help reduce poverty in the state. And so some of their work included recommendations that the legislature acted on a few years ago with the expansion of the EITC or the Earned Income Tax Credit. The MySTEM Advisory Council has created what's called the MySTEM Network. It helps promote STEM learning at schools across the state. Obviously incredibly important for as we think about future workforce needs with technical and STEM skills. The Michigan High-Speed Internet Office is working to help make sure that every Michigan home is connected to high-speed internet. Critically important as we think about the skills and access that's necessary to be able to participate fully in the modern economy. Michigan Women's Commission is another advisory board that makes policy recommendations to the governor, helping make sure that we're promoting policies that address some of the particular problems confronting women, things that might make it difficult for them to fully participate in the economy. Also does work to recognize women's accomplishments and contributions to Michigan. And then finally, the Office of Global Michigan, which you'll be hearing from later today. Several of these offices do provide, direct services or assistance to the public, and I've sort of covered the specific work that they do in the previous slides, but happy to answer, questions on those. But would just, conclude by saying, LEO brings its agencies together with a shared mission that really is around creating pathways to prosperity for Michiganders. We get the benefits of collaboration across these different programs, services, and partnerships. And that helps us ensure that individuals, businesses, and communities have the tools and support they need to thrive, making Michigan a stronger and more prosperous state, not just today, but into the future. So happy to answer questions or hear your concerns.
Thank you for the presentation, short and sweet. I'm a business owner, and I have to just make a couple comments that I started my business in 2013, very quickly got deployed overseas, but over the years, we used LEO quite a bit, once they came into existence, and I have to say that the website is spectacular. I mean, it is very easy as a small business to utilize and to do the filings and things of that nature. So I do want to give credit, whoever set up your website did a very, very good job. So it's very user-friendly and very efficient, and so I definitely want to give credit. Please pass that on to your folks that they do incredible work on the website. We do have a couple questions, though. Representative Karen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you both for being here to answer questions and for your testimony. A quick question, for these benefits, can anybody get any of these benefits if they're not working? At any time?
Well, you'll hear more from unemployment insurance agency later, but obviously the way that you qualify for unemployment insurance benefits is by not working. There is a job search requirement, so in order to get unemployment benefits, you have to be actively looking for work, but they are designed for people who are not working. Some of the workforce training is also designed to support folks who need additional skills in order to obtain employment. So, for example, if you one of the ways that you can qualify, if you are unemployed, receiving unemployment insurance, actively looking for work, but there are additional skills that you might need in order to be able to get gainful employment, you might qualify for training. And so you could be in a training program that's designed to help you get employment rather than, immediately take a job, get training that you need to get a job that would pay you wages that are going to be better wages and more associated with the wages that you had before you lost your job. So training is an option under the law. There are also some of the specialized services, so for folks who have a disability, the idea is to get them prepared for the workforce. And so these are folks without that kind of increased specialized training. They would not be able to find gainful employment, and so they might not be actively seeking work because they're getting the specialized training that will allow them to successfully enter the workforce, after that training has been delivered.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Representative Menser.
Thank you, Chair. I was just wondering, under the MySTEM program, do you work with, ISDs or school districts to help develop that program? And then once these kids get through that and maybe graduate, do you help with additional job training and maybe employment opportunities?
Would want to get back to you on the second part of that. The first part, so the MySTEM network does work directly with local school districts and ISDs. They help them develop curriculum and programming and adopt proven models that have been successful in other school districts. And so a huge part of it is working directly with those local school districts. I'm not sure I know the answer about what work they do on workforce, but we can get back to you with that.
Okay, thank you. And then on workforce development, does that include Michigan Works?
Yes. So the way that the workforce development system, it's a federally authorized and funded system. It's authorized under a federal law called the Workplace Innovation and Opportunity Act that delivers funding to states to fund workforce development programming. That funding flows through the state to the local Michigan Works agencies, the local workforce boards, and the majority of the funding flows through LEO directly to those local MWAs, and we partner with the MWAs in the administration of those federal WEO programs. We often have staff who are co-located in the local MWA, so that where there's services that are state-provided services, it's a seamless experience for the business or for the worker who's seeking those things. So it's really a cooperative model where we work in partnership with the local MWAs.
Well, I am going to give a shout out to Michigan Works. Back in my previous life, I was a small business counselor, SBA trained, and we worked with our local Michigan Works office. We would meet monthly, and we would talk about specific cases, specific employers who were looking and what they were looking for, what skills we need to concentrate more training on. The Michigan Works office, in Macomb County was absolutely wonderful, and we really did employ and match to good employers quite a few people. So I just wanted to give a shout out. I think Michigan Works is a really wonderful program, and I hope that it gets the funding that it needs to continue the good work that it's doing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Carr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Does the Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity have some type of website where if a private company is hiring, able-bodied people could go and see what companies are hiring in their community?
We do. We maintain what's called the Pure Michigan Talent Connect website, and that has both, employers can promote job postings and openings that they have on that site, and then job seekers can look for those opportunities. And so,
Are those able-bodied people able to get benefits if they have not sought opportunity at those companies?
which benefits are you referring to?
Any benefits, any handouts or taxpayer-funded assistance if they're not seeking work at those places that are employing?
So the only benefits that we provide are either provided to folks who are unemployed and actively seeking work, or they are unemployed and enrolled in a training program that's designed to give them specialized skills that they can use to then fill an employer need. And so no one who is not enrolled, no one who is not actively seeking work or enrolled in one of those approved training programs can receive benefits.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. And before we move on, just one more question. So Leo, you guys have a lot of folks that work under you directly, but how many employees do you have?
It's about 2,000.
2,000 in all the different circles, so it's a lot of. Now, as far as the command structure that you have, is it on the oversight side? How does that all work with getting feedback or ensuring that things are being done with all these different parts and pieces? Obviously, UIA is a big part, but how is that responsibility visualized and given oversight within your organization?
Sure. Yeah. No. Great question. Thank you. I think one of the benefits of having a large department is in any way that you would structure these state offices and bureaus, you'd be dependent on making sure you have strong leadership at the agency and bureau level that is day to day making good decisions, administrating these programs in ways that are responsible. I think what the benefits of coordinating under this Leo umbrella is a couple things. Number one, where you have small offices that have similar and aligned visions or missions or goals, having a centralized strategy that allows folks to make sure that we have similar targets, that we have the same North Star goals that we're pointing to across these departments and agencies and bureaus that have similar missions. You're more likely to get the benefits of collaboration. You're more likely to avoid duplication of effort. You're more likely to be able to say, hey, look, if we're going to get some additional funding, we're going to use that to close a gap that we know exists. And so I do think, from a efficiency perspective, there's some benefits to that scale. I think another benefit to this approach is that administration is important, and where you get, I think, benefits is at scale in administration. So, for example, I think Jay Shaughna's, I'm biased, but I think she's, the best legislative director in any state department. And our small agencies and bureaus have access to not just Jay Shaughnah, but her team. Whereas if they were all organized separately and independently, they might not have someone responsible for legislative affairs, or they might have someone who does not have the same level of professional seasoning that Jay Shaughna brings to this role. And that not only benefits the department in each individual agency and bureau, it benefits you as well, right? When you have questions or your constituents have questions, even if it's a small part of Leo that is only a handful of staff, you're going to be able to have access to our executive team, our centralized services, to reach into that part of the department, and you'll have folks who are really good at their job who are able to support not just those smaller agencies, but also support the public, support the legislature as they're looking for information or trying to get help or answer questions.
Oh, appreciate that response. And you had mentioned there's a couple of departments under Leo that are cabinet positions.
Yes.
Correct me if I'm wrong, that would be like a governor appointed director?
In not necessarily. So obviously the governor has the authority to organize her cabinet however she wants. And so there are folks within who lead different Leo agencies and bureaus who the governor has placed on her cabinet. And so, and that includes UIA, it includes some of the MEDC and MISHDA. In terms of that sort of oversight responsibility, the director of UIA still reports through Leo to the governor, even though he serves on the cabinet. The type 1 agencies, it's slightly different in that they have a governor-appointed board. So the CEO of MEDC reports to an executive committee that is appointed by the governor. The MISTA CEO reports to the MISTA board, which is made up of appointees that are made by the governor. Director Corbin serves as chair of that board, so there's greater level of oversight there. But there's sort of two different functions. The whether or not someone is in the cabinet is a decision the governor can make based on, her desire to have different perspectives, represented in those cabinet meetings.
But in the end, the Director Corbin essentially hires, fires, or has control over the directors that fall under.
Unless it's a board-appointed
Unless it's board appointed.
position. So if it's someone who is hired by a board, then it is the board that makes that hiring decision. If it's someone that is in a civil service position within state government that is organized under Leo, then it is a Leo hiring decision.
Okay, so slightly hybrid kind of, maybe.
It is, and the type 1 agencies are a bit different. They have to live in state government someplace under the Constitution, and so having them organized under Leo, even though there isn't direct operational control, you get the benefit of that collaboration. And because again, going back to this, if what we want is a prosperous state, we have to have an economic development strategy, a community development strategy, and a workplace strategy that's aligned, right? If an employer is going to open up a new business, they need to know that they can find the right talented workforce to staff that business. And that workforce is going to need a place to live. They're going to need housing, right? And so trying to get the benefits of collaboration, even if there isn't a direct operational control, it still has, I think, a lot of benefit for the state to have that organizational structure.
Thank you for that answer. Representative Suranglu.
So my question wasn't really on the broad overview. I was just kind of wondering if we were going to go into more depth on the UIA questions, if it made sense to do the presentation before we did. But yeah, I don't want to cut off anyone's broad overview questions.
Okay. You have one last question, sir, ma'am.
Yeah, my last question is, how often does the director of UIA or Office of Global Michigan communicate with the director of Leo?
I don't know if I have an exact answer. I know that there are regular one-on-one meetings between director and departmental leadership, and then we also have biweekly meetings of our full agency leadership. So, it's pretty regular contact and communication.
Thank you.
Well, thank you both so very, very much, and please stick around if you would like. And
Thank you.
I think we have is UIA or Office of Global Michigan?
Office of Global Michigan.
Michigan next, okay. Just give yourself an introduction, and then the floor is yours, sir.
All right, good morning. Thank you again for the opportunity to share about our work. I'm Ben Kavanaugh. I'm the Deputy Director for the Office of Global Michigan. Just for some background on myself, I have served over 20 years in state service, and 13 of those years have been in work that is relevant to the line of work that I am currently in. So I'm just going to kind of start with an overview of the Office of Global Michigan and kind of the history of the creation of the office. It was originally established in 2014 as the Office for New Americans under Executive Order 2014-2. At that time, it was created to address Michigan's population decline. The state was the only one to lose population in the 2010 census. And creation under that executive order recognized the significant role that immigrants play in Michigan's economy, our tax base, our cultural identity. Immigrants pay annually $2.6 billion in state and local taxes, and despite only making up about 7% of our state population, they contribute 10% of our state's gross domestic product. The office was renamed the Office of Global Michigan and moved under the newly established Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity, but retained all responsibilities and functions of the Office for New Americans, and that was done under Executive Order 2019-13. The Office of Global Michigan currently has 3 divisions: Refugee Services, our Prosperity Commissions Administration, and our strategic operations team. I'm going to start with our refugee services team and go over their work a bit. They are 95% federally funded. The team is guided by federal regulation under Title 45 for execution of the Refugee Resettlement Program. And per that Code of Federal Regulations, the purpose of the program is to provide for the effective resettlement of refugees and to assist them to achieve economic self-sufficiency as quickly as possible. Per our federally approved state plan, Global Michigan's Refugee Services Program staff act as the lead in all areas of concern which relate to refugee programming and are responsible for coordination of services to refugees with all their state agencies. So Global Michigan uses that federal funding to administer grant agreements with nonprofits and other local partners to achieve that goal of successful integration and self-sufficiency for legal immigrants. Programming includes, but is not limited to, there's some listed on the slide there, refugee cash assistance and refugee medical assistance. This is 4 months of federally funded assistance. Similar to what Jonathan shared before, for this program as well, individuals must be employed or in a employment training program to receive that assistance. We also have our unaccompanied refugee minor program, which is foster care services for refugee youth. And educational integration programs, which go everything from early ed to K-12 to post-secondary prep programs. Digital literacy, which is both teaching digital skills as well as incorporating English language learning as a part of that program. Public health coordination to ensure both initial and ongoing medical screening for arriving populations. And then employment placement and retention. Refugees boast a 90% job retention rate once placed in employment, which is extremely high. So all of these programs that I've talked about have clear, strict federal guidelines on the eligible individuals as well as the allowable services for those populations. The team itself, the Refugee Services Division, provides technical assistance, coordinates the work of the grant agreements we have with nonprofit partners, and monitors both the program outcomes as well as data reporting to the federal government. Next, I'm going to move to our Prosperity Commissions Administration team. This team supports the work of 6 of Michigan's commissions. They're listed here: the Black Leadership Advisory Council, the Commission on Middle Eastern American Affairs, the Hispanic Latino Commission, the LGBTQ+ Commission, the Michigan Asian Pacific American Affairs Commission, and the Michigan Immigrant and Refugee Council. With these, the appointed commissioners work in partnership with OGM to develop annual strategic plans and goals regarding the interests of their communities. The commissioners essentially act as strategic, essential stakeholders to provide the state and our office with input. And then lastly, we have our strategic operations team. This division leads several pieces of work that essentially ensures access to government services for all Michiganders and really drives economic opportunity. Under Public Act 242 of 2023, Global Michigan was given the responsibility and authority for the statewide language access support in the state. Specifically, Global Michigan has to coordinate steps taken by all state departments and agencies to provide meaningful language access to public servants pursuant to Public Act 241, the Meaningful Language Access to State Services Act. That team supports state departments in the completion, the necessary amendments, and execution of their department's language access plans. The team also provides state agency and partner trainings around equal opportunity and state requirements for hiring practices and access to state government services. And then lastly, the Strategic Operations team facilitates work related to workforce development through the international talent attraction and retention in partnership with organizations like Global Detroit, the Michigan Works Association, local MWAs, and local chambers of commerce. Michigan employers are honestly one of the state's and Global Michigan's most valuable partners in welcoming immigrants to the state and recognizing their contributions and partnering really closely with us in that work. I'm going to wrap there and happy to take any questions.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your presentation. I did have a couple follow-up questions, like H-2A visas. Is that something that you guys in your organization help with as well?
Office of Global Michigan actually doesn't have direct responsibility with that. We have a Foreign Labor Services Department within the Workforce Development Agency that Jonathan spoke to. So they work directly on the H-2A program. We do partner very closely with that office, but they have direct responsibility in that coordination with the federal government.
With the talent search then, you had mentioned the talent search, immigrant visas, or maybe you didn't say visas, but I apologize, but describe that just a little.
Sure. So, I mean, there are other employment-based visas. Besides the H-2A is kind of the agricultural-based work. So those other employment-based visas are international students, as well as obviously some of those arriving on humanitarian status like refugees. The goal is economic self-sufficiency as quickly as possible, and so working very closely with employers and MWAs for those populations as well.
Okay. All right. Representative Cerniglu.
Thank you. So this was previously, I think, called the Office of New Americans. And when was it, under which governor was it implemented, and what was the goal of the Office of New Americans at the time that it was set up?
Yeah, so the executive order in 2014 to establish the Office for New Americans was under Governor Snyder. And as I shared, it was really about the population loss in the state. Immigration really is an economic driver, and really trying to recognize that and build that talent attraction and retention for our state.
Short. Thank you. Representative Karen.
Is the Office of Global Michigan entirely state funded, or
It's about 95% federally funded.
about
We do-
95% federal?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Short and easy. Short and easy. Any other questions? Well, we appreciate your willingness to come and testify. Thank you so much for your information.
Thank you.
And I believe I'm going to be correct when I say the next presenter will be the UIA.
All right, good morning, and thank you for having us today. Vice Chairs Brooke, Cerniglu, and members Kara and Menser. And I don't want to miss this important opportunity to, before I jump into my prepared remarks, to just shout out, Verner's has a cherry splash flavor that we stock up on seasonally. So if you haven't tried that and you see it in the stores, it's worth stocking up. What's that? Is it medicinal though? I don't know, it's good. My wife and I really enjoy it. Thank you. But thank you for inviting us here today. I'm here with Brett Gleason, Chief Operating Officer, and I'm here with Andrew Crane, our Legislative Affairs Representative for the UIA. In my role, I am the head of Operations Bureau and work closely with Director Palmer on strategic initiatives and future planning of the agency. I was hired into UIA 3 years ago as the agency's Chief of Staff, and I most recently served as interim director before Director Palmer was named by Governor Whitmer in February to lead the UIA. Before joining UIA, I managed the state's continuous improvement program at the Department of Technology Management and Budget. I have proudly served the state of Michigan since 2012, when I began as a student assistant. Today, I am here to share the story of how UIA has transformed from a deeply challenged organization during the pandemic to a national model today for fast, fair, and fraud-free service. We are turning innovation and modernization from buzzwords into action, and here are just a few examples of how we're doing that. We've exceeded the U.S. Department of Labor's metric for first-time payment promptness. UIA is significantly below DOL's targets for fraud and best in nation. Our easy-to-follow claimant roadmap is our most popular resource, with over 680,000 users since August of 2023. More than 141,000 employers have accessed our Employer Help Center to navigate their tax and claim issues. Using our online coaching sessions, workers can get guidance about common issues they're facing. MyUI, our soon-to-launch new computer system, will feature plain language forms and correspondence, and will speed claim filing for workers and wage reporting for employers. We take immense pride in all our work serving the people of Michigan. Director Palmer, the team at UIA, and I recognize there are still more opportunities for improvement, and we are grateful for the opportunity to share our progress. Today, I'll walk through where we've been, where we are, and the exciting opportunities ahead. At its core, UIA provides temporary financial assistance to Michigan workers who lose their jobs through no fault of their own. But this program is much more than a check. It's a critical investment by employers in our workforce and a stabilizing force in our economy. Studies show that for every dollar paid in unemployment benefits, nearly $2 circulate back into the state's economy. Our work is governed by the Michigan Employment Security Act, and we take seriously our responsibility to serve both workers and employers efficiently, transparently, and with integrity. Our agency welcomed Director Jason Palmer in February. He is the 12th director in as many years, underscoring how vital stability and long-term vision are for this agency. Director Palmer is focused on 5 priorities: modernizing our systems and services, providing best-in-class customer service, supporting lasting careers through partnerships, engaging and empowering our staff, and resolving persistent operational challenges. We have about 760 staff across the state, many of whom had dedicated their careers to public service under difficult conditions, and we're very proud of their resilience. At the center of our work is a transformation guided by one principle: delivering fast, fair, and fraud-free service. We're using one-time state and federal funding to create a system that's more responsive, more accurate, and easier to use. This includes rewriting letters and forms in plain language, offering full translation services, piloting an AI chatbot, and launching new online resources like the Claimant Roadmap and the Employer Help Center. Our modernization efforts aren't about bells and whistles, they're about accessibility, clarity, and dignity for our users. Our top transformation milestone is the launch of our new system, MyUI. MyUI will replace Midas and MyWAM, which were built using 2010 technology, and we all know the last years have exposed their limitations. MyUI will speed up first-time benefit payments, streamline employer tax reporting, and build on robust anti-fraud tools, and significantly improve the user experience. We are targeting go live for early 2026. Fraud was a defining challenge of the pandemic, but today I'm proud to report Michigan's fraud rate is now well below the federal 3% threshold. This turnaround is thanks to strong identity verification tools like MyLogin, employer wage verification, participation in the National NASWA Integrity Data Hub, and our proprietary fraud manager system. Since 2020, UIA's efforts have led to over 165 individuals charged, 126 convictions, and over 90 million recovered. And we're not stopping. We're piloting new image alteration detection technology, making Michigan the first state to take this step. While fraud prevention is essential, our longer-term mission is reemployment. We administer the Reemployment Services and Eligibility Assessment Program, RESIA, to provide targeted support to those most likely to exhaust their benefits. We partner with Michigan Works for job matching and skills development, and Leo's Workforce Development to build lasting careers across Michigan. Every interaction is an opportunity, not just to help someone receive benefits, but to help them re-enter the workforce. We're also implementing important updates signed into law this spring. Weekly benefit maximums increased to $446, dependency allowances rose to $1,266 per dependent, and the duration of benefits returned to 26 weeks for the first time since 2011. These are significant changes requiring updates to forms, systems, and customer communications, and we're on track to deliver them smoothly. Let me briefly share some data to illustrate our reach. In the last 12 months, we've served 216,000 beneficiaries. The average weekly benefit was $347, and the average duration was 11 weeks. On the employer side, about 240,000 employers contribute to the trust fund, with another 5,500 reimbursing, which includes governments and nonprofits. Our trust fund has recovered significantly, from a low of $513 million in 2021 to over $2.59 billion today. And that stability matters. It means we're better prepared for the next economic downturn. Our administrative budget is funded almost entirely by federal dollars, with less than 10% coming from our contingent fund, which is supported by overpayment penalties and interest. Modernization efforts are typically funded through rare one-time state and federal investments. Finally, I want to thank the legislature for using Curtis to bring constituent concerns to us. Since its launch, we've handled over 207,000 unique inquiries, with 726 already this year, 84% coming from the legislative offices. We take these requests seriously and will continue to respond with urgency and care. I want to be clear in saying that everything I talked about today is for the benefit of those we serve, Michigan's workers and employers. We are taking the lessons learned during the pandemic and applying them to develop new resources, processes, and initiatives that will improve the unemployment insurance experience for claimants and employers. We know it can be difficult to understand our letters, find key information, or get through the phones. We can and will continue to do better. Before I close, I want to acknowledge the amazing professional people who work for UIA. They have a passion for their jobs and a passion for helping their fellow citizens. Some have been unemployed themselves before landing a job with the agency. That provided them with money to put food on their tables and pay for housing. They bring empathy and commitment that can't be taught. Others have been with the agency for over 25 years. They provide deep institutional knowledge that is so important for the efficient execution of our program. Our staff has been through historic stresses and tribulations, yet they go above and beyond every day to serve their fellow Michiganders. They are the drivers behind the sweeping changes underway at UIA. We know UIA hasn't always met expectations, and we are making measurable progress. We're not looking for short-term headlines. We're focused on durable, systemic change. I ask you continue to support UIA's transformation and continue to provide the resources necessary to serve your constituents. We value the partnership we have with Leo and the legislature, and most of all, we value our commitment to serving the residents and employers of Michigan. Thank you for listening to our story, and I hope you have a better understanding of the bright future that is ahead for the agency. With that, I'm open to questions the committee may have.
Well, thank you, Brent, for the testimony. Certainly, you guys have gone through a lot of changes, especially in the past 5 years specifically. How long have you worked with UIA?
I've been with UIA just shy of 3 years.
So you weren't there in 2020?
No.
As an employer, I can say I'm glad to hear that there's a lot of changes that have been made, because that was pretty, put it lightly, disastrous for employers, especially. One question I had, you mentioned the funding. So the management or the operations are funded by federal dollars, and the rest is funded by whom? We're
about 90% federally funded, and we have a $20 million annual appropriation out of our contingent fund, which is considered state dollars. And then any modernization efforts that we take on, we rely on one-time federal or state, support, such as ITIF. So the ITIF is how we're funding our modernization project right now.
But all the money you pay out is funded by?
Oh, yeah, sorry. The employers pay taxes that go into the trust fund, and that is exclusive for benefits.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that and make sure, as a business owner, I know we have our rates and we have our banks. So just to clarify, every employer also has a bank within that bank, correct? Based off of rates and based off of how many employees they have.
Yep. I'm not too familiar with the formula, but there are, yes, they contribute to like their own individual funds.
Mm-hmm. And then the 12th director in 12 years.
Yeah.
So with Director Palmer, and I think he's going to be here next week, just for committee members to know, and we'll get to meet him in person. But that's a lot of changeover in 12 years. So obviously there's a lot of change with a new director averaging every year. So your confidence in him, you had mentioned a few things, his highlights or his mission as far as innovation and that, and you feel confident in what he's going to do and what he's doing.
I do. In my background as process improvement, one thing I know about change is it requires a strong sponsor, and I wouldn't be successful at my job if I didn't have a strong sponsor leading the agency. We had that with Director Dale for the last 3 years, and I'm confident we're going to see that with Director Palmer. He came in, he's focused, he's eager, he's excited, which is exciting for us, right? And so I have high confidence that we're going to continue to build on the successes we've had over the past 3 to 5 years.
Appreciate that.
Yep.
All right, we do have a couple questions, so I'll start with Representative Kara.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Do you know who the UIA has assigned to develop the new website?
The new website is being designed by internal staff, the communications team. We have approximately 5 members of the comms team and 1 who's leading the redesign efforts. Now we have put 2 new tools onto the website that I mentioned, the Claimant Roadmap and the Employer Help Center. And we did have a human-centered design firm who came in, researched, met with employers, met with claimants, developed prototypes, and through multiple iterations in their methodology, produced the Claimant Roadmap that we have today and the Employer Help Center. And we are in progress of updating the rest of the website to kind of match the guiding principles that we learned during those engagements.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Menser.
Thank you, Chair. So once again, in a previous life, I was the assistant to the vice president of operations of a landscape contracting company, and I did the hiring. So I can tell you that some of these people were very highly skilled, machine operators, operating engineers, 324, finished graders, guys that excelled with bulldozers, highly skilled people. But because of the nature of weather in Michigan, somewhere near, the middle of November to the beginning of December, we would lay these guys off. And as a condition of employment, of accepting unemployment, they had to apply for work. These guys would come back every year by April. I mean, I had guys that worked for us 15 years. Every year we would lay them off. The following spring, they would be back. So we had a case where a gentleman, highly skilled, again, a highly skilled operator, who was told that he had to apply for a job in a factory. This guy, when he was working, was making $50 an hour. This factory was going to pay him all of $15. So do you guys have any plan to look at guaranteed seasonal employment like that and what we can do, to fix these kind of situations? Or is that going to require legislation out of this House?
Yeah, policy changes to that effect would require a legislative action. And I think that I appreciate hearing that this program benefits claimants with, benefits while they're temporarily unemployed. And I appreciate hearing too when employers can use the program and benefit their, cyclical nature of hiring. But unfortunately, I think in that instance, it would require a legislative action.
Thanks. You'll probably see one soon.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Carr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There are 760 total staff at the UIA, was what we had said earlier. Do you know how many of them are assigned to claims processing?
I don't have the number exactly, but I would think it's around 150. But we can get you that number.
Okay. And do you know how many for the investigations department?
Investigations has, I believe, around 30, but they're currently staffed with, I believe, 100 LTEs right now.
Okay, and my last question with that then is, do you know how long it takes on average to investigate a suspected fraud or intentional misrepresentation?
I don't have an average number, and the investigations can vary depending on the type of, flag and what issues are being investigated. We have a lot of tools at our disposal. I mentioned the NASWA Integrity Data Hub, and that is available to all states, where all states share their data, and you can go in and I saw a demo, it can be pretty deep and comprehensive. So it all just kind of, each case, it's a case-by-case basis, depending on, the nature of the fraud activity.
Okay.
But I can get you an average.
That'd be good. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Representative. Yeah, back in 2020, obviously, we dealt with a lot of issues. I mean, and I had a lot of heartburn over the UIA during that few-year time frame where we literally had workers that marked quit, still got unemployment, called, shouldn't have went through. I wouldn't say that was fraud on their part, but there was mistakes made, certainly in the UIA agency. As you guys are probably, I mean, you're recovered from COVID in a way, but yet you're still looking back. How far back are you looking back to find? You had mentioned there's a number, it was in the hundreds that you have charged. Obviously, there's people that made mistakes, didn't intentionally defraud the UIA, but there was a lot of mistakes, and then there's obviously probably some that did. How far back are you looking when you guys are doing your oversight on fraud or potentially mistakes that were made in the past?
Yeah, I would say we are looking at the total population. So we track all fraudulent activities, and we investigate and penalize all fraudsters. I think the issue and the difficulty with the pandemic is so much of that fraud was imposter fraud, and money went out the door. And so there's not a victim outside of the taxpayer, but there's no individual to track down. There is, but we have no means of actually tracking them down. So it's an unfortunate reality of the time. But we can confidently say that every case is investigated, and if we can identify and track down the fraudster, they're penalized and actions taken.
So it's kind of a current process, not necessarily a look-back process that you're...
Yeah, yep. That backlog or that caseload is managed daily.
Roger. And I guess there's no other questions. We appreciate your testimony. Thank you for your willingness, and thank you for taking on a very, very difficult organization, that obviously has made the headlines in the past few years post-COVID, for a lot of issues and a lot of money that inadvertently went out. And so we appreciate you tackling that, and we look forward to talking to Director Palmer next week as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
All righty. Yep. So we do have to move to excuse absent members. Representative Kara moves to excuse Representative Wooford. All righty. And being no objections, the motion prevails. And being no further business before this committee, the committee stands adjourned.